Alright, welcome back to Roguetech, and welcome back to your first playthrough. So, we just won a defend base against some crazy opponents, and I'm very much looking forward to getting to the salvage screen and discussing what do. So, before we get there, remember, we only negotiated for, what was it, like 500,000 C-bills? If even, somewhere around there? And, yeah, that was enough to cover our financial costs and probably repairs if there weren't too many. But, we destroyed the local vanguard, the local government vanguard. That's a flat 50,000. We destroyed one of the reinforcement lances in its entirety. That's another flat 50,000. Then, since we escorted the APCs, which I think, again, based on the reposition round, I'm pretty sure that's kind of just guaranteed at this point in the current state of things with Roguetech. So that's a 10% increase, and the contract payment increased by 25% because every building survived. That is a lot of money. So even after our roughly 100,000 C-bill drop costs and ammo and whatnot, we still get almost 1 million C-bills. Now, remember, that's 2 full financial reports, but I have a better use for it. So, we're going to click next, head right on into the regret page. The turn where I stood and shot with the bushwhacker, future me still has not edited any of this mission's videos yet, so I still don't know whether that was my bad or just jank, but I'm sure future me is either laughing or just facepalming right now. So, the Phoenix Hawk, we did soak a good bit of damage with our aggressive positioning and maneuvering against the Brutus, because Brutuses are scary no matter how primitive they may be. And we did also get shot by the what was it, the insignificant thing that whatever, it's fine. The backstrike that dealt exactly 25 damage and did not crit was fine. And yeah, that's basically all there is to it. And you can see, while we destroyed, 11 units, the Vanguard, which was 4, as well as 1 full lance of reinforcements and 3/4 of the other, most of that was our allies. With our mechs, we killed 5 enemies, and with our vehicles, we killed 1 enemy. Which means that the rest of that 11 kills went straight to our allies, which is fine. You can also see, I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but the experience gains of your Mechwarriors is in part dependent on the kills they get. So that's why Scion here got 992, Sarge got 1040, Hellion got 950, Braver got 968, because they're all roughly the same skill point. Now, higher skilled Mechwarriors will get less experience just based on the mission. But in general, if you get kills, you get bonus experience, from what I've seen. I could be wrong. I'm not gonna lie. I've never looked super deep into it, but I know for a fact whenever I see something like this, like Sarge got 2 kills, got an easy 50 more experience than Scion, almost 100 more experience than Braver. Like, the second kill had to have done something. Especially since Sarge isn't even one of our lowest skill Mechwarriors. So, yeah. Moving on. Ooh, okay. This is a chance to talk about this. Sometimes, at random, I think it's just completely RNG whether or not it happens, but you'll have this disputed salvage pop up. So, our hiring company, our hiring faction, is demanding that we give them 3 parts of the Clan-Tech Spider and 2 parts of the Omni Firestarter. But in exchange, they're going to put 3 clan medium pulse lasers, and a bunch of junk. No, the engine core 270s, that's money. Like, that's valuable. Standard fusion engine is kind of trash, but heat sinks, absolutely. Just single heat sink, that is ridiculous garbage. So you have 3 options when this pops up. If you refuse, the stuff that they're offering does not go into the pool. The stuff that they're wanting does not get removed from the pool, and they just get a little upset with you. If you accept, that stuff's gone, that stuff's added, and you gain reputation. Or you can dispute, which costs you quite a bit of C-bills, honestly. And there's a 50-50 chance that you keep the disputed salvage, and the salvage pool gains 1 to 6 items from the compensation offer, or you lose the disputed salvage, and an additional 1 to 6 selections are put into the salvage pool. Which, again, if these 1 to 6 selections that are added are stuff like clan tech, it could be very much worth the 105,000 C-bills, even if you lose the coin flip. But if it's like 6 more heat sinks, or worse yet, 1 more heat sink, that would be tragic. And I am not 100% certain. So, like, I'm pretty sure that the Vindicator died from an engine explosion, from an engine crit kill. But I'm not certain. I am not, like, no hesitation, no question in my mind, certain. Which means the fire starter where the Mechwarrior punched out is going to be the only full mech on offer that I am absolutely certain of. Because we did not destroy any locations before that Mechwarrior punched out. Which means, if I do not dispute this, or if I do not refuse this, I might not be able to talk about what I wanted to talk about. So, even though normally I would argue that this was worth it, if only for the 270 cores and the clan pulse lasers, because clan pulse lasers are just really good weapon systems. There should be at least one on the table, so I'll definitely talk about them in a moment. But 270 cores, they're very nice. For any mech, light or medium. Light mechs that can run them go super fast with a 270 core. Medium mechs with a 270 core do not need any external heat sinks. And that's usually like roughly where you want to be to get 5-7 movement or maybe a bit more. So the 270 cores are very interesting. But especially since it's an Omni fire starter, we're refusing. The faction's going to be a little upset with us, but that's fine. There is so much to talk about here, so let's just get straight into it. Brutus Assault Tank, 75 tons. Now, again, this Brutus was the worst Brutus you could, like, the weakest, worst Brutus you could possibly deal with. But even then, it still had 770 armor. And that's primitive armor, I'm fairly certain. No, wait, it says armor, so maybe not. But regardless, that's a lot of armor to grind through. And the weaponry it had, the Mortar 8, the large chem laser, like, that's a lot of firepower. And the affinities, you can kind of see at the bottom there. The affinities, as far as I know on Brutus's, just the little bit of looking at vehicle affinities that I glanced at when I realized that was a thing. The Brutuses have really good, like, just assault tanks in general have really good, like, I'm going to sit here and just soak damage abilities in their affinities. But we're not going to take it. So there's 3 main reasons we're not going to take it. The first and biggest reason we're not going to take it is because we can get a mech. And while this Brutus would be useful for a quite long time, I would rather have the mech, not just for the video purposes, but also because you can change a mech's loadout and configuration and whatnot in response to, say, if we travel to a cold planet, I can make our mechs run a little hotter. Or if I, am in an urban environment, I can give our mechs jump jets. Stuff like that. Which is actually considerations I'll be talking about next time we travel, which may be soon. But the second reason that I'm not taking this particular Brutus is because as far as 75-ton tanks go, that's using a lot of our drop tonnage for less than I would like. Yes, it's a lot. It's a ton of armor, it's significant weaponry, but we have limited drop tonnage, which is not apparent when you're dropping light mechs and light vehicles, but as soon as you start getting into the solidly medium to heavy territory, you start running into the I can only drop 400 tons of whatever at the start of the game. Again, if you're dropping 20 tonners, that doesn't matter. You're never going to hit the 400 tons until you start getting to the point where you're dropping almost exclusively, 60, 70 something? Like, for 400 tons, if you don't increase your slots any, which we'll talk about in a bit, if you haven't increased your drop slots at all, then you have 6 slots to split 400 tons between. It's a lot, but if you're using 75 tons on one of those slots, that's a major investment into your total drop tonnage for, quite frankly, the worst possible 75-ton thing you could be dropping. Again, it's very powerful. It's very scary, especially early game. But compared to other 75-ton vehicles, for example, it's kind of lackluster. But then the third and most important reason that we're not going to be grabbing the 75-tonner... Did I say the last one was the most important? Regardless, money. Every time you drop a 75-ton vehicle, it's expensive. Period. Compared to dropping a 30-ton vehicle or a 25-ton vehicle or what have you. So we're not in a great financial position yet. We still have a lot of work to do on the Argo to upgrade it and whatnot. And we still need to get our Mechwarriors experience and improve our mechs before we can start dropping on higher rated missions. So, the Brutus is not the first thing I would grab. Now, if it was the only full thing I could build, I would be very tempted, because just having it on hand, especially since it does run a bunch of, primitive tech, so the upkeep cost per financial report wouldn't be too significant, and if you just need a chunk of armor to slowly roll forward during a, say, battle or whatnot, it could be very nice to have on hand. The Defender, we saw, it was just bad. Vehicle Flamer and 2 AC2s with 245 armor. Yeah, no. There we go. Full Firestarter OC. Yeah. It's Omni. It's 45 tons. That is everything that we want right now as is. And we will go over it a lot more once we get to building it and all of that. Which I actually will also be going over a consideration that... Put a pin in it. Let's just leave it at that. Put a pin in it. We also could have taken another Locust. Friends don't let friends pilot Locust. Like, the one we have has been doing well so far, but I cannot recommend building another Locust unless you, say, are playing by some kind of special rules that require you to build a bunch of small mechs. But, moving forward, we have spider parts, which... this is actually more compelling. So remember, the Spider 5WDR... Wolf's Dragoons. I believe I made mention of this in a previous video. Anytime you're dealing with Wolf's Dragoons, the fluff is basically their clanners that flew into the Inner Sphere for various reasons. and worked as a mercenary company, bringing what they thought were like old, rundown mechs according to clan standards, but they were like the craziest, most advanced stuff that the Inner Sphere had seen since before the Secession Wars started. So, needless to say, if it says Wolf's Dragoons, it probably, at the very least, has good components. Now, with 3 parts of the 5WDR and 1 part of the 5V, we could actually take those 4 parts, combine them together to create a Spider 5WDR that could then have clan tech actually built in it whenever we put it together. However, your mech tech, your current mech tech, determines which locations are not destroyed, as well as what components in those locations are not destroyed. And at the start of the game, when all you've built is your second mech bay and got it running at 100% efficiency, you do not have, even on a 30-ton mech, because it does increase, like, the difficulty of salvaging things increases based on the tonnage of the chassis. But even on a 30-ton chassis, you do not have enough mech tech to reliably salvage much from a 30-ton clan tech mech. Because I'm fairly certain that the value of the chassis does play into the difficulty of salvaging components from it. Now, if I get them randomly, I'd be overjoyed. That would be very fun to put together just as a loot box to see, did we get something cool, or did we just, lose money on it? Then there's also the Vindicator, which was in fact entirely, in one piece. So it actually replaced the PPC with an ER PPC, which has longer range, does more damage, but also generates a lot more heat. And the LRM was a LRM 15 Artemis. Oh, wow. That is actually really nice. Is it nice enough to pass on the Firestarter? No. Well, maybe. But no, for the purposes of making a video about Omni-Mechs and how Omni-Mechs work, I'm going to build the Firestarter, and then we're going to talk about building mechs, we're going to talk about Omni-Mechs. But the Vindicator, if I were not intent on making that video about, or making, the rest of this video about building an Omni-Mech and how Omni-Mechs work, I would be very, very tempted to grab the 4 parts of the Vindicator instead of the 4 parts of the Firestarter. Actually, hold on. No, we do not. I was like, we've fought a Vindicator before, didn't we? So I thought maybe we had... If I could have grabbed 3 parts of the Vindicator and built it, and then, 2 parts of the Firestarter, I might have done that, and just gambled on the other 2 parts of the Firestarter, but we, unfortunately, do not yet have a Vindicator part, so we would need all 4 to build it. But, moving on. So yeah, here's the ERPPC. It does 5 additional damage, which, it's not much, but a 10% damage increase on essentially your primary weapon, because medium and light mechs, if you're running an ERPPC, you're not running much else. Pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good. I do love PPCs, but yeah. Flamer, large chem laser. So, chem lasers, unlike regular lasers, need ammo, generate considerably less heat. We actually don't have a large laser, do we? No. I was going to show it's 12 heat instead of 24, I want to say, something like that. But yeah, it generates a lot less heat, but it also has damage variation, plus or minus 9, so a single shot from a large chem laser can do anywhere from 31 damage to 49 damage. But more importantly, it doesn't generate a lot of heat and uses ammunition. That's the thing that large chem lasers do. Worth noting, though, a single bin of ammo and the large chem laser is 4 tons compared to an inner sphere large laser, which is 5 tons. So you're trading off the reliability of always being able to shoot and never having to worry about ammo explosions in exchange for actually saving a ton in addition to using less heat. So large chem lasers are interesting and potentially viable depending on what you do with them. LRM-10 Longfire. This is what I was talking about. Minimum range, 180 meters, compared to the LRM-15 Zeus. Excuse me? They changed Longfire, huh? They changed Longfire. Huh. Yeah, max range 960. It used to be longer. Yeah, so the optimal range is slightly longer. Max range is slightly longer. But minimum range is the same. Weird. I mean, that does kind of make sense, because the only use for long fires, the way they used to be, was, yeah, standing way outside of the battlefield and just lobbing LRMs from crazy distances and not really getting close ever at all, because as soon as you started getting within the same postal code as another mech, the long fire the minimum range destroyed it. The Zeus is an LRM that does an extra damage per missile, but it does have a jam chance just firing, period. Can be used with Artemis 4. That's right, there was Artemis on the board. Okay, so there's so much. I haven't even gotten through the weapons yet, and there's just so much good stuff. So this is part of what I was saying both times I dropped on a defend base, is like, the reinforcements that drop on a defend base have higher value gear than what you would normally find, for example, here in a 1.5 skull mission against planetary government. Just this volume of quality, desirable gear is a lot. Far more than any other 1.5 skull mission probably would have gotten. So we have 2 clan medium pulse lasers. Worth noting, clan medium pulse lasers do more damage, have more range, and only generate a slight amount of additional heat. Medium X pulses trade out all the pulse laser like bursts and multiple damage instances for a single big pinpoint that you'll notice does just about as much as all 3 pulses combined of the clan pulse laser. And oh wow. So okay, it generates more heat than the medium pulse laser. Yeah. It has worse range than the medium pulse laser. The clan medium pulse laser. It's outright better than an interspheric pulse laser. But the biggest downside to X pulse lasers used to be recoil, which I'm not seeing mentioned, which makes it even more interesting. So yeah, 2 tons, 1 slot, that's a pulse laser. But yeah, that's very interesting. I really hope I get that randomly so that I can just slap it into something and see if so like the categories thing, that's kind of new to me. I'm wondering if X pulse laser category just automatically means, hey, it's gonna have recoil, or if they just literally took the recoil off the medium X pulses. That would be very interesting. Mortar 8. I'd be okay with getting it randomly. 10 tons, be able to drop ordnance from anywhere indirectly. Or not anywhere, but like no matter whether you have line of sight or not, dropping AoE probably does at least something kind of munitions is useful. Standard SRM. Okay, here we go. This is our first weapon attachment that we've seen since the handheld rework. Can be attached to in LRM, SRM, MML launchers. Maximum of 1 per weapon. Must be at the same location. If we take that, for 1 ton, we can give our Bushwhackers enhanced LRMs the ability to fire in Artemis 4 mode with +1 accuracy, -2 indirect accuracy, +2 evasion pips ignored, and +2 chance to cluster on hit location. That is insanely good, especially for this early in the game. 2 evasion ignore, and +1 accuracy. That is so good. I am very tempted to just take that without even looking at anything else. We got some more C3 slaves. If you roll back to the video where I previously talked about electronic warfare stuff, I believe somebody mentioned the way C3s work in a comment, and I think I pinned it. Hopefully I'll remember after recording to go back and check and make sure I pinned it, but there was a comment that explained a lot of C3 stuff. So, Endo Steel, not the most interesting thing here. Yes, Endo is very useful to have. Endo is, gonna save tonnage, and it doesn't, compared to the other stuff we have, Endo is way, way too common for us to pick. Same with engine cores. XL engine is interesting, but I would rather have the Artemis system than the XL engine. Part of that is because of what I will show once we build the Firestarter, but aside. Clan Pharaoh. Okay, see, that's more interesting. Clan Pharaoh is less slots than Inner Sphere Pharaoh, takes more mech tech and more money to repair, but it has built-in case, which, unlike case that you have to install and use tonnage on, also applies to legs. And also apparently now prevents ammo explosions from dealing more than a cap of heat and stability. That's cool. But again, I would rather have the Artemis system, I think, right now. That enhanced LRM, that's a lot of damage. So making it better is very, very interesting. Also, double heatsink kit. There are so many things that would be so good to get randomly. I actually kind of regret not going for just like full salvage, even though the C-bill payout being almost 1 million C-bills was in part because we didn't negotiate for full salvage. Those percentage increases wouldn't have mattered nearly as much if we had gone with minimum payout. Heavy ferrofibrous. You trade more slots for more weight reduction. So, yeah, heavy ferro is especially good on medium and smaller heavy mechs that have primarily energy hardpoints, because the fixed slots, as long as you're able to deal with heat cooling issues by, say, adding an extra 2 or 3 engine heat sinks, you don't really need the slots for the energy weapons like large pulse lasers, large lasers, ER large lasers. Even PPCs don't have that much slot requirement. So, unlike ballistics, especially the heavier ballistics, you can get away with like 15 fixed slots on medium and smaller, like 60, 65 ton heavies. You don't really need the slots to use up all the tonnage on good stuff. But again, compared to what else we can take. Oh boy. Okay. I just glanced at the recording time. That's half an hour on the post-mission debrief. And then, yeah, standard fusion engine. Again, they wanted to add these in exchange for our ability to salvage that Firestarter. Woo, 400,000 C-bill value. Okay. Okay. So, this is what part of the reason I didn't just immediately grab it. In order to make use of the Artemis LRM, we would also need to take the Artemis ammo. That makes it slightly less interesting, because that's 2 salvage picks to make a single weapon system more accurate. Now, the LK ammo, yeah, +1 accuracy, not nearly as great as the +2 evasion ignore and +1 accuracy. But it's a single pick for +1 accuracy. Regardless, I'm not going to take any of this ammo. I would love to get the Artemis system and the Artemis ammo randomly. There's a chance, but as you can see, we have quite a large, just cacophony of salvage. But yeah, primitive cockpit, -1 to piloting and no ejection. Yeah. Very important if you build a primitive mech to slap a standard cockpit in as quickly as possible. So now that we're not taking the Artemis attachment, ooh, so there is a lot to consider here. There is the argument of if we take one part of the Vindicator 2R and we get a second part randomly, then all we need is 2 random Vindicator 2R parts from anywhere, and we have a chance to get not only, well, first of all, we get a 45-ton mech, which would still be good for us right now. We also have the chance of getting Endosteel ferrofibrous armor and the Artemis-enabled LRM, what's it called? Zeus 15, which is just a whole lot of awesome. Plus an ERPPC. Would love to have it. But if we only get the one part, if we priority pick the one Vindicator 2R part and we don't get a single one of the other 3, it's kind of not worth anything. I mean, it's, you know, worth the scrap value, but like as far as building it together, it's not valuable in that sense. Compared to the medium X pulse or one of the medium clan pulse lasers, which just straight up, if we replace 2 medium lasers with a medium pulse, then the medium X pulse would do 15 less damage pinpoint for roughly, actually I think exactly the same heat, but have bonus accuracy and evasion ignore. The medium clan pulses would be, again, 14 less damage than 2 medium lasers. Would actually save 3 heat and have bonus accuracy. But I think I'm just gonna hope for them randomly. The XL engine is interesting. A, we can sell it for a lot of C-bills. And B, putting an XL engine into a mech, while it is, as I explained in a previous video, risky in some ways, it also saves a lot of tonnage. And either lets you upgrade the engine to get more evasion, or put more stuff in and armor on because boom room. The Fire Control Clan is also interesting because it gives +1 gunnery. So, the cool thing about this, A, it weighs no tonnage. Like, it has no tonnage because the Fire Control standard that it's replacing is the same tonnage in slots. So, a Clan Fire Control standard would be no additional anything on the mech. No extra slots, no extra tons, and just give +1 gunnery. I have explained previously why +1 gunnery is not as interesting as +1 accuracy, but I've also mentioned, and I will touch on it again here, +1 gunnery is amazing for jam chance considerations, because it is a flat 1% reduction in jam chance and an additional 10% chance to unjam each turn. So specifically on maybe the Phoenix Hawk, which has, I believe, the machine guns as well as the AMS, that unjam chance and the reduced jam chance would be very compelling. But specifically because of what we saw this mission, I'm going to take the Clan Pharaoh. Because Case would have made that entire situation with the Bushwhacker much, much less terrifying. Because if we had Clan Case on the Bushwhacker, and the ammo in the leg exploded, it would not have destroyed the mech. As is, without the case, the ammo explosion would have traveled to the side torso where we have an XL engine. This one change, replacing the Pharaoh with Clan Pharaoh, will prevent that from ever being an issue again. So, that's why I'm going to prioritize that, even over the heavy Pharaoh that would save us more tonnage, the double heat sink kit that would allow us for better cooling on a mech, etc., etc. There's a lot to like here. And my picks would absolutely be different if I didn't have this Firestarter OC to pick. Especially if I didn't want to talk specifically about Omnimechs. Because honestly, especially after looking at it closer and what it's carrying closer, I would much prefer the Vindicator. I would much prefer the Vindicator over the Firestarter. In part because if you look at the actuator limit, the Vindicator says right lower, which means the left arm has no limitation, which means it's a upper, lower, and hand. The right arm actuator limit of lower means it's an upper and a lower. Lowers give bonus accuracy with arm-mounted weapons. Firestarter, because it's an Omni-mech, arm actuator limits Omni, which means if you want a lower arm actuator or a hand, you need to actually install Omnipods that have those features. So, we are going to have less impressive punches if we get into melee with this thing. We are going to have less accuracy on our arm-mounted weapons if we don't get into melee with this thing. But I really want to talk about Omnis. Oh man, that's hard. Plus the Omni, it has a lot more affinity stuff, but the affinity stuff is kind of whatever. Like, +1 flamer and machine gun accuracy, evasion ignore, and reduced heat. Okay. +3 pilot bonus health. Okay. Versus the Vindicator 2R. +2 right arm mounted accuracy, +1 piloting, +1 gunnery. And then -3% damage and through armor crit immunity. It's just so good. And it has the chance to come with the Artemis stuff. Ooh. But Omnis are also, for reasons I want to really cover, Omnis are less of an investment to get up and running quickly. Whereas the Vindicator would take a lot of work. That the Firestarter, for reasons I'm going to go into when I build it, because I am going to take it, because in part, we don't have engine cores, I don't think. And if you don't build an Omni, you need an engine core to make the mech, go. Alright. So that's it. We get a part of the Defender tank. Okay. Part of the Flea. Part of the Phoenix. Part of the Spider that we didn't care about. 2 parts of the Spider that okay. So we can, if we get one more Spider part somewhere, we can build the Wolf's Dragoon Spider. We get 1 Vindicator part. Oh, unfortunate. Okay. It's fine. It's fine. We get 2 Rocket Pack 10s, which, again, that's 5 shots. So if the mech, say a light mech, is only going to be able to fight for 5 rounds or so, like, a 20-tonner, throwing a pair of Rocket Pack 10s and just having the most impactful 5 rounds before it has to run away you can is pretty good. It's a very valid early game strategy on very light mechs. For 5 tons, you get 120 damage Alpha Strike for 5 rounds. Like, that's more than what most 20-tonners would be able to do. We got the XL engine. I'm not going to, but if I were to sell it right now, you would see it's a lot of value. I'll just go into the store after and show you how much value. It's very good. Fire Control Standard. We don't already have a Fire Control Standard, so I am going to keep that in case we have a Fire Control Primitive at some point. The Clan Pharaoh that we picked, a Clan Double Heatsink, the Double Heatsink Kit, which I'm also very happy to see. 6 Jump Jets. We already have 3, but I'm going to keep them around just in case. Primitive Cockpit, never interested in that. And Clan Sensors. Wow. Alright. That's a lot of good stuff that we did get. XL Engine, Double Heatsink Kit, and it's a lot of good stuff we did not get, like everything else. Honestly, the only part I'm really kind of sad on is the Vindicator 2R part. I kind of wish I would have picked one instead of the Pharaoh now for the exact reason I stated, but it's fine. In any case, we're at 41.5 minutes. So, we're actually going to go into the mech bay, do building and stuff tomorrow. Alright, I decided to stick this in because I actually just looked at the time, and yes, I am out of time to record for today. But I wanted to make sure to make note that even though we had our Bushwhacker opened, even though we had the back of our Phoenix Hawk open, even though we got banged up pretty good, we still are only paying 37,000 C-bills in repairs. But our mediums are going to be out for a minute. So just looking at them. Phoenix Hawk, 6 days. Bushwhacker, 6 days. Stealth, 3 days. We are not going to be able to drop on the escort mission unless we bump the Hornet and Assassin to the top. Remember, the Assassin's 3 tons light and the Hornet is bad. And we drop those with our vehicles. So, yeah, we're not going to drop on another. But it's fine because we got more than what we needed from that mission. 1.4 million, and I will go ahead because I will definitely forget before my next recording session. Pop into the store, go to selling, and scroll down to that the Engine XL, which is a solid 325,000 C-bills, even though we're kind of neutral with the people that run this store. If we were more liked by the faction, that money, that value of C-bills would go up. XL engines are very nice to have around, so are double heatsink kits. Even if you don't end up using them, if you're in a pinch, selling them can definitely save you from bankruptcy. But, yeah. So now, that's been your episode of Roguetech for the day. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, have a good one.